morning everybody, it's Chris here from Student Education with the 4 majors and that's update for the 30th of November 2011. Hi guys, we're going to be looking at the Euro against US dollar on our CTC strategy template. Let's look at the daily. 2 consecutive days of indecision, lots of wicks, a lot of movement to the upside, however more price action at the bottom end of the wicks, guys, confirming that sentiment is still negative even though we had some upside movement over the past couple of days as we had this hesitation against the 3,500 mark, which happened to be prior resistance and support. You can quite clearly see that we've had hesitation at this level in the past, noticeably through September, October, and through the latter part of November. And we are seeing price failing to rally above that 13,500 mark. We need to see price trading above it if that is to genuinely be a consolidation with a potential for upside to occur. You can see the trend line direction as of play then. If I just draw the trend line, and you can quite clearly see swing lows depicting price action. Yesterday's candle trading through it, however not closing higher. And you can see noticeably that price action really moving, pushing higher to 13,450, which happens to be price support and resistance there again in early or mid-September through the latter part of mid-November, and resistance yesterday. And what we're seeing now is we want a decision candle. Obviously after indecision you want to see a decisive candle. This morning on Asian session trading going into European session open, we've seen price pretty much falling lower, and it looks like potentially we should be looking at the low of what are we, Wednesday today, so Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday's candle here at 13,1200 potentially as our first target today if everything remains the same. Just be aware there is a hell of a lot of news out today, guys. We're working our way into the news, a lot on European news announcements. We've got German retail figures that came out 0.7, so that's 0.6% better than the forecast, which is good. We've got French consumer spending month-on-month figures, expecting a positive figure from the previous figure. German unemployment change, expecting a negative figure of 6k. And then we go into CPI flash system year-on-year figures. We've got the unemployment rate, and then we go into 1 o'clock this afternoon, we go into the US data. You've got the ADP non-farm employment change. Remember that non-farm payroll is this coming Friday, first Friday of every new month. We have non-farm payroll, and that's next up this weekend. Oh, sorry, this Friday. So be aware of it. Then what else do we have? We have Chicago PMI, and we have pending home sales. So there's a hell of a lot. Just look at your book. And more important, there's the beige book later on at 7 p.m. this evening. So that's going to be interesting. If you're around at 7 p.m. GMT, have a look at that. See what those come out. It's quite an interesting piece of news, and I think you should be aware of it. So have a look at your news announcements today. There's a hell of a lot of it. Getting back to actual price action, as I mentioned here on the daily, you can see quite clearly as the start of this morning, we've seen price pushing low, which is a good sign. Ultimately, we should be looking at the lows here down at the 13,1200 as potentially our first target. If I just look at some action over here, let's have a look and see if there's anything in the way that's really gonna affect price action today. I don't think so. Let's have a look. We're pretty much below all those figures. Oops, apologies for that. Just want to get this bang on. There we go. Nothing really there. Most of it happening above price. I'm going to get rid of these 2 lines of it. You can quite clearly see the last ones, pretty much the hesitation at the top. And as it stands now, we could potentially look at taking the highs here to the low, back up to this high candle yesterday, and project. So 50% here at the 13,2500 would be our first potential target. Next potential target would be the 61.8 down here at 1320, and 100% of this move over here would take us down to 1305. So that remains to be seen if that is definitely bang on. So as it stands now, you can quite clearly see the breakout. Let's have a quick look over here for this. Let's just make that nice and up. So as it stands now, looking at 13,2500 as our first target. Second target, the 13,200 mark. So let's put those in our hourly. The 2500 is there, and the 200 is lower down here on hourly. So yeah, you can quite clearly see there is movement in this. We had a breakout here. You can quite clearly see that we had swing highs, and we had a break going into this morning's trading. A lower swing on the Asian session, price really pushing this lower, and sure enough, you can quite clearly see here that price pretty much not stacking up and swinging lower into this session. So as it stands now, we could potentially be looking at take the high of this candle here to the low, and then pull it back, and there we go. So yeah, pretty much bang on in terms of projection wise. So as it stands now, the CTC on our hourly is negative for further shorting. Institution moving average above price. In fact, all the moving averages above price, which is a good indicator. The 4 hour, I can clearly see yesterday's piercing candle to the upside, failing to actually break and trade higher than those highs. Especially here, the breakout at 13,400. Price really testing that area before falling over. A lot of consolidation through most of the past couple of days into this squeeze. A nice little triangle, a little wedge of some sort. You can quite clearly see there, bouncing into 2 points, and then we had the breakout. The institution moving average well above price, CTC in our favor, swinging lower, so depicting that price action is still likely to fall lower. And sure enough, we're getting that. Price really making its way to the downside. It'll be interesting to see how some of this news comes out today, how it will affect price. But as it stands now, it looks like our next potential target is going to be down here at 13,200 to start with. That's going to be our next one. If it reaches these areas, are we going to see a bounce, a potential bounce? That remains to be seen. But as it stands now, 13,200 is our next potential target for price as she heads lower. 30-minute chart, you can see here all the moving averages consolidating together as price was pretty much going sideways, not getting a lot of momentum, very indecisive, and we wanted a decision. Whether you actually drew a line across the bottoms there and the tops to say, well, that's a ceiling level, that's a support, we're going to see a break either end of that to see price moving. You can see here the selling, CTC very much in favor, and they went through this bullish consolidation here, and you can notice that CTC was very indecisive, so not really an opportunity to trade here, primarily because we hadn't had any breaks of the 13,400 mark, and we hadn't had a break of this area down here at 13,200. So as it stands now, you can quite clearly see there is a noticeable area here where we've had price support and resistance along this line. We've had a clear break of it, and all the moving averages above price, which is pushing it lower, and sure enough, we are heading lower. So as it stands now, 13,200-ish or 13,2100 would be our next potential target as it stands. Next up is sterling. Let's have a look at the daily. Here again, 2 days of indecision, but we saw price really pushing higher. The open of this morning's candle, geez, literally gapping higher this morning on trading and heading higher, but we've seen price really pulling back since that gap to the upside. I've just refreshed, and yeah, you can see quite clearly 2 days of consecutive upside, and then we've had price pulling back on the Asian session going into the European session this morning. CTC is still negative, and you can quite clearly see that price is moving lower. Let's have a look and see if there's anything in the way. Yeah, we have a ceiling level on the way, just above price this morning. You can see there's a consolidation band here between 1560 and 15,960. Clearly, two of the fib points are consolidating in the area there, and that's going to be, you can quite clearly see support through and a little resistance through there. So if this is to remain bullish, then we want to see price trading above these two lines over here. You can see yesterday's candle piercing through it, but never actually really building on that and coming unstuck at the prior support here, or consolidation here at 1565, and yesterday at the close saw price really pulling lower, and as it stands now, we've seen the Asian session going into the European session open really moving slow, finding resistance at that level. So if this is to remain bullish, we need to see that area here being cleared. So anything above at least the 1560, 200, and finding support here on our hourly, etc., like going into the US session today, could spell further upside movement. Failure to see any of that happen before we hit the US session, then we should see further, and we see more price action at the underside of these two lines here, then we should ultimately see further movement to the downside. As I said, you can quite clearly see we've had a nice little run here. I'm just wondering if it has played out the 100% of the initial move. Yes, it has, and that's why we've seen this pullback. Now the pullback got to stay under. So if you take the high there and the projection, you'll notice that there are a lot of fib lines really stacking up over here. So this is very much a solid ceiling level, and if that can remain like that during the course of today, then we'd like to ultimately see price failing to trade any higher, and we should see price just fall rolling over and a continuation to the downside. CTC on our daily is still negative. Okay, we're still all the moving averages above price. Our 50 is now flat, 20 is still pointing lower. So short term, we're still looking for negativity, and you can see price is testing that little 23.6 mark as it stands. So intraday, we'd like to see those levels being breached. Just move to a 30-minute candle. You can quite clearly see now all those lines that I've projected here are the institution moving average just below price here, 23.6. We have to see a breach of that to see any further momentum to the downside. You can see the nice breakout this morning. A lot of momentum selling short here into this area here, but you'll notice that 23.6 is in the way. So we've got to see, and the institution moving average not coming below it. We've got to see price trading below that to see any further falls. Otherwise, as it says that the institution moving average, if price is trading above it, then there's bullishness. If it's trading below, then it's bearish. You can see the squeeze here occurring as we enter into this. Price pretty much playing with this fib extension here, and then finding resistance. CTC went negative, and sure enough, we had the fall this morning on the Asian session. So nice little breakout and continuation to the downside. So the high of that 100%, 161.8 is well oversold now, so we should see a correction as we go into this morning. So see a bounce. If that fails to correct itself, then we would like to see a close below 1525. 1552.5 mark, at least below the institution moving average here, below the 161.8 to see 261.8, which would take us down to the prior lows that we saw recently before we head all the way down to that price support here at 1542.50. Okay, so first support call now. Got to get through this resistance, the support area here. There's a lot of support going through here. We can see a potential bounce, consolidation. So heads up. If you're not in this trade, look for tight stops as we head into this area, because we could see a potential bounce. It's got to break and trade below 15.525 to still be considered bearish. Until then, we could see consolidation here with a potential to bounce higher. Next up is US dollar Swiss franc. See price tentatively testing that 930 mark and failing to close higher than that. Notice we had resistance level previously and a nice long run into this, and now we've come unstuck here at 930. Clear resistance above us. We need to see a bullish engulfing candle here breaking higher. Would definitely dictate that we should still seeing price moving higher. That has failed. Nice candle to the upside, and then the following bearish indication, and we're trading slightly lower. Price is hanging on though to the upper end here above the 920 mark, and it's consolidating higher, so we should see a potential retest. This candle over here, is it hammering out a small bottom at 920? Is it going to give us an indication that we should see a reattempt soon? Looks quite good, because this candle that's forming as we speak now is engulfing yesterday's trading candle. Okay, not the wick, the actual body. And that's, if it stays the same line, closes like that, especially on our hour and 4 hour, then it could depict that we should be looking at 930 as our next potential target to the upside again, and reattempt soon. CTC is in our favor, all the moving averages below price, so the longer you can actually find support at 920, then there's more likelihood of a reattempt of those highs at 930 again. Okay, so just remember that. So as it stands now, you could use your 920 as your support intraday, and your 930 as your ceiling level or your target for today, if that remains the same. So ideally, you've got to see a close higher than yesterday's high, which we see on Asian market session price testing. So if you can draw a line there, okay, and then we'll move into our smaller time frames. Here we're in hourly. You can quite clearly see those pullbacks, and then the hourly has shown that we're seeing that resistance. So yesterday's trading range, we've got to get above that. You can see this morning we've seen a nice bounce on this institution moving average, pushing it higher, 920. There we go. I mentioned 920 is a very strong area here. We want to see price trading above that, and 9245 happens to be a ceiling level. Got to see price trading above that. A nice bullish engulfing close above here would definitely indicate that we should be seeing higher highs. On the hourly, our CTC is in favor. We have our blue, a nice bullish engulfing candle. However, you can see the last candle, the candle that's in play right now, is quite indecisive. We see it trading at the low end. Got to see a break above 9245 to still be positive on this pair. We do have a lot of news out today. So as it stands now, got to see a break and close higher than 9245, especially on a 30-minute hourly candle, to indicate that we should see further highs or a further test of 930 at least. Fail to do so, could be still trading in a consolidation range. We've been there before, guys. Look at this. Otherwise, the next thing we could do is look to see if we see a resistance here with a shooting star of some sort. A similar candle of sale at this area here would definitely depict that we could be seeing 920 as our next potential target for the remainder of today. A break below 920 and the institution moving average with momentum, i.e. like that, would and should look for potential downside movements. Yesterday's candle, you could see that pretty much moving a lot of momentum. However, you would not have been triggered in if you were using the wicks. If you're using the bodies, you would have been triggered, and unfortunately price would have gone against you. So in my case, I always trade in the wicks plus my spread. You would have not been triggered in that fake out. So it's so important to actually go for that. Yes, everything was in our favor. The entry, though, would not have been triggered in my case. So very, very important. Next up is Japanese yen. Let's have a look and see what's happening here. We've seen a lot of movement as the US dollar has gained strength over the past couple of weeks, or days, apologies, after the actual bounce on the intervention here. We saw a pullback up to 61.8 and tested the underside of that, and then as price went on, we saw a lot of indecision over those past couple of days as price traded below the 61.8, and then we saw this bullish engulfing pattern here which really took it above it. We saw the next candle here actually finding support above 61.8, and then we saw momentum actually building up on that. And as it stands now, tentatively we're above 38.2, and ideally we should be looking at 22.6 now on this pair as we head into the end of this week. As Doji yesterday, a lot of a spinning top on 38.2 fib. As it stands now, if this momentum continues through this early session today, we could actually see a build up on that, and then ultimately here at 78.50 could be our potential target for today or for tomorrow or for the remainder of the week. If we get above 22.6, then ultimately the 79.50 would be our next potential target long term. Look at that 38.2 now as our intraday support at 38.2 here at the 7800 mark. If price can stay above that going into the US session today, then we could see momentum continuing higher. Spinning top, we want to see after an indecision, we want to see a decision candle. Okay, very important. See a lot of indecision, then we had the decision. So we need a decisive candle to see where it's going to take us likely. If we can get above this area here, which happens to be price support, there's new resistance. You can quite clearly see the two prior days finding resistance at this area. Today's trading session, trading through it and engulfing yesterday's candle body. If we can do that going into this US session today, then we should see momentum picking up, and 23.6 here at 78.50 should be our potential target long term. So everything's in our favor. CTC's in our favor. Nice bullish up candle. Moving average all below price except the institution. We are still very much in a very negative downside trend on the US dollar Japanese yen. However, we are seeing the US dollar picking up steam over the past couple of months, guys. The dollar index has grown a hell of a lot over the past couple of months, and that is definitely showing now as we see momentum really picking up after that intervention. So as it stands now, for US Japanese yen pairs to trade, got to see price closing above this going into the US session. So the next 4 hours. Okay, hourly in front of me, you can see that momentum and these highs. Look at that, posting new highs as we go now. We're seeing the CTC in our favor on these hourly charts. Look at that, nice movement upside. Trend line really depicting price actions is moving higher. Ideally get above this little tweak that we saw in the Asian session, 78.10, 78.15 would definitely show us that price is really interested in heading back up to those areas here at the 78.30 mark overall. So everything's stacking up here for further upside movement for the US dollar Japanese yen. if anything, we could actually look at the RSI on here, just plot a quick relative strength to see if that movement high is genuine movement. So ideally what you want to see is as price heading higher, RSI heading higher. You can quite clearly see here as price heading higher, you can see those highs, RSI highs are getting lower, which depicts that that's what's been happening on price action. As you can see now, RSI is above that, however not trading higher than the prior one, which is what we want to see ideally, but all importantly it is above the 50. Okay, as long as RSI is above 50, it is positive. This is positive movement. We want to see RSI moving in the direction of the trend. The last thing we want to see is price moving higher, but RSI below 50, because then it would show that the momentum was not in favor of further upside movement, and we should be looking for shorts. In this case, price is moving higher with the actual movement of the market. So if everything goes according to plan, we should see price moving higher during the latter part of today. So that's it, guys. Hope you have a fantastic trading day. Please keep it simple if you are using this particular template, and make sure that your money management is bang on. We are seeing a lot of news, guys. The next couple of days is going to be very, very important. We go into unemployment. We got non-farm employment figures this Friday. It's the first Friday of the new month, December. So we have the non-farm payroll. We're expecting a lot of volatility as those figures come out or make themselves available as people try and speculate what they are. Obviously, that will also play into what price action does. So the next couple of days are going to be very, very important for that. So be aware of the news announcements, because they will factor in trading. Big problem now, not as a problem, but as time goes on, Eurozone is still an issue. Funding, etc., like that. Is the IMF going to be helping Bailout Italy? Is the news on everybody's lips at the moment now. So that remains to be seen. There's still issues in Eurozone. Eurozone is a huge issue at the moment, so be aware of it, guys. Until then, happy trading and trade serenely.